right, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another. Why is my seat always? I feel like it's not centered behind me. Well, welcome. OSR Reddit Roundup number 5252. That means at the end of this one, you could watch one a week and have a year's worth of roundups. Not sure why you'd want to put yourself through that, but you can do it. You can do it. Do it. Don't have any notes. Nothing going on for me. It's just second to last day of school for my daughter. So school year is winding down. Summer is ramping up. So if I'm sweating, it's because it's hot in here. I'm going to turn on this light, get the sweat going even more. There we go. There we go. All right. Let's just get to it. Let's see. Let me go to the board. Go to the big board. Ready? Ba-bam. We're looking at the OSR subreddit on the hot tab as usual. Hey, Ian, thanks for joining. Let's see. What have we got here? Greetings from Poland. They bought some stuff and did it themselves. A map for a small adventure site. What are your favorite types of non-standard monster loot? We could go check it out. I don't know if I have any favorite types. This is posted by Rover Buff. I know I've said that name before, so I'm sure we've covered some question or comment of theirs in the past. Hey, y'all. So, one of the things which I like to add to my games is quote-unquote natural loot. Valuable items which can be salvaged or harvested from slain monsters. The prospects of acquiring such loot has, at times, even made hunting down such monsters for their valuables an adventure in its own right, instead of just being a reward for randomly encountering the creature and overcoming it. BX already does this with the killer bee and its healing honey, for example. Some of my own examples include giant crab roe. Giant crabs have a 1 in 6 chance to carry roe or crab eggs. They are a well-known delicacy in refined circles, and if freshly harvested or properly brined, they could fetch a pretty penny at many a wealthy noble or mercantile household. Cockatrice wishbone, or cockatrice wishbone. Cockatrices have a wishbone much like their more common kin, the chicken. Only this wishbone truly does possess magical powers and can be processed into a cure for petrification. Salamander fluid. Both frost and flame salamanders radiate forth their respective elements in such capacity that they can hurt adversaries. When slain, their inner fluids, which holds this radiating power, can be carefully harvested and processed. Once done so, they may be used in a manner of ways, from making frost or flame flasks, working like burning oil, to lightly coating one's weapon in the fluids and having them temporarily radiate frost or flame for extra damage. What about you guys? Any quote-unquote natural loot you like to tack on to your monsters? I don't think I have any. I haven't come across any. I haven't really thought about it, actually. It's a cool thing. I think fire beetles are one of the giant beetles in the BX bestiary. I think they make mention of something with is it the fire beetles or one of the other ones where you could potentially which parts, or maybe it's whichever ones there's ones that maybe they do light and you can take their fluids and I think create some kind of torch out of it, or light source, not a torch, but some kind of light source out of it. It's a cool idea. I personally, I'm always wary. I'm just not a big crafting fan. And part of my wariness sometimes with some of these is that it turns the game into more of a crafting game, or puts crafting in a bigger light than I want it to. My players haven't been interested in it. If it ever came a time where they were super interested in crafting, I probably would have to do this stuff anyway, because I'm not so anti that I just would simply refuse to do it, even if everyone else wanted to. It's just kind of it's not my bag. In terms of, like, say, the giant crab roe, what I might do or emphasize here is, sure, they can fetch a pretty penny, but I might want to take that and tie it into some of the social world building that you might want to do. If you think about how your party, the individual characters, might want to gain ranks in society, well, how do you do that? You present yourself to the local lord. Great. I'm so-and-so, and I defeated the bug bladder beast of Blarg. Okay, fine. But if you can show up at that audience and say, I defeated the bug bladder beast, and here I've also brought you these delicately, perfectly brined giant crab roe. Ooh, I like the cut of your jib, sir. Tell me more. Come forward, sir, and gain this prize. So I think I might emphasize that instead of the mercantile nature. Depending on your game, the party's probably gonna have lots of opportunity to get lots of gold. So adding more gold or silver, whatever, adding more a coin to their pockets in terms of the payoff, may not be there. Obviously, some of these other ones like the salamander fluid and the cockatrice wishbone have a payoff in different situations, but combat oriented, presumably, or at least recovery slash combat, cure for petrification. You're probably going to get petrified from either a trap, spell, something conflict ish. And then the salamander fluid, you could probably use it for other things like creating the world's first refrigerator by coating the inside of a barrel with salamander frost salamander fluid and sticking your stuff in there, which could be kind of cool, but mostly combat. So I might look at, well, how can we use these things and have them be useful in other ways in adventuring? How might this help you in a dungeon? Like I said, there was that one beetle type. It might have been the fire beetle, something where you could take the gland out and stick a stick through it and turn it into a torch, or something like that giant crab where you could think about, ooh, well, if you needed to gain entrance with someone, you want to give them an impressive gift, that's an impressive gift. Let's see what some other folks have in here. Did I upvote? I did. All right. Quietus87 points out the Hacklopedia of Beasts, which includes monster yields. In its monster yields, which parts of a monster can be sold, used for spell components, or if it's edible, and does eating it count as cannibalism? It's a good source for such ideas. I never like the idea of maybe leaning into spell components, which is one of those things that most folks don't pay a whole bunch of attention to. But if you're going to go through the trouble of doing these out, then think about what spells, if you've got the innards, if you've got a cockatrice wishbone, what might you use that for? Maybe something, maybe you could use it as a spell component for petrification or some other thing. Certainly giant crab roll, you could maybe think of some things that you could use with that, or any of this stuff really. And then Dromedary Pit counters with its $40 for a PDF. That's wildly overpriced. And Quietus accepts that criticism with aplomb. Pricing of PDFs, I don't know. I think people I know we all want to make this value judgment of, well, they've already done the work and here's the PDF, so shouldn't it be like dirt cheap? But, people got to make back their prices, and artists, layout, all the authors, all this stuff ain't cheap. And I wish we could get away a little bit. Maybe $50 for the PDF. You're going, yeah, that's a little bit too strong. Hey, fair enough. But at the same time, it's kind of, if you're on drive-through, the thing is, this thing is it's like it's a download of forever. It's not even like, hey, you get this one copy of it. You can come back and download a billion copies of it. You can have one on every device in your house, every house you own in the world. I feel like we maybe undersell that stuff, and depending on how much money they made in whatever print versions, it's just because it's digital doesn't mean it should be just worth less. But $50 is probably a bit steep, but stuff's expensive, man. Paying people wages to do stuff is expensive, and PDFs for gaming products, digital products is maybe one of the main ways you're making your money back. So you can't price yourself super low and just hope that you're going to make it up in just volume, because that's not necessarily going to happen with niche whatever things. And I would guess that, I want to say I even have this book hardcover. I think I might. That something like this, I think for Hackmaster or something else is pretty niche indeed. Pete Giant says that the players come up with an idea and it's logical, I lean into allowing it rather than building a system I'd work out when, if it occurs. Yes, I think the benefits to having the system in place. I agree with you, Pete Giant. I think it's great. You kill this thing and you so yeah, there are a couple things, right? So you want to make sure in those instances that, let's say, like I think lots of people do. I certainly do in my games. Okay, you're fighting a frost salamander, and in the player, the character kills the thing, and you say, hey, narrate how you're killing it, right? Narrate what you're gonna do. And they're like, I split it down the middle from in twain from head to toe. Fair enough, right? Split it. Then you want to lean into narrating the things, talking about, because a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with magical creatures, players aren't going to assume that a frost salamander has a frost gland inside of it. Certainly, I wouldn't necessarily assume that it's a magical ability. It's just, why do dragons breathe fire? It could just be they breathe fire. It doesn't have to be my concept of a dragon having some kind of fire gland in its throat that does this, or it's just a magical ability of dragons that they just have, and it just comes from their being, and there is no particular gland. Neither one of those is wrong. So if I'm a player, I'm not necessarily going to assume that I can cut open monsters and find sort of quasi anatomical bits that are going to correspond to their magical abilities. And in fact, sometimes they're not going to even be there. So then it's important for me as the GM, as the ref, to then, if they do something like they cut open the belly of the salamander, whatever, that I speak somewhat to that. That maybe there's a particular, sort of pouchy gland sloughs out of the wound, and through a small cut, some substance that seems to be like have the consistency and color of quicksilver, but radiates cold, seeps into the ground, right? Something like that. And you go, oh, and then they'll think about it. I think it's hard to ask your players to come up with all that, because like I said, their conception of what makes a magical beast magical is going to be potentially different from mine. And if I don't introduce it in some way, or just have that talk, you could also do it session 0. Oh, by the way, everything that has magical powers is going to have some kind of anatomical bit that gives them that power. So if you find that bit, you could do something with it. For me, I probably wouldn't want to go that route, because I don't want it to turn into Monster Hunter the game, but that's me. And I actually have never played Monster Hunter. It actually looks cool in terms of video games. It doesn't seem to be my cup of tea when I think of it in a tabletop playing sense. Max Damage 1 says, giant spiders, crabs, praying manti, beetles, anything with a chitinous shell can be harvested with a successful dex roll and turned into armor or shields. The praying mantis head and the beetle horn are popular helmets. I do like that, but I wouldn't say a successful dex roll. I would say you have to take that back to somebody who can do it. This is where I would bring in the specialists. You do not have the expertise to cut this thing out in a way that you're not damaging it and doing whatever. You got to take it back to I guess maybe there's even somebody, the insect armorer person. Hey, cool idea for a settlement if you want to make something unique and you're in an environment where there's lots of giant insects. When you think of some armorers who are working with steel and iron, maybe bronze, why wouldn't you have somebody that works with chitin and these sort of exoskeleton pieces that it couldn't put it together? And that's their specialty. So if you're in that part of the world, you can take something to that person. If you're not, then maybe you got to track down somebody who is. Maybe there's some little village or tribe or individual out there that can do that. And whispers of what they can do with given a giant beetle shell come on you. And hey, you just so happen to have one sitting in the back of your wagon. If only you could take your wagon across those shimmering wastes and find where the last known location of that individual used to be. That sounds like an adventure. Hey, Marcello. MP Giant says, yeah, there has to be a cost for any item that improves the PC mechanically. Yes. I would agree with that. So I'll give Max damage. We got Logan Maddox bringing up cattle. Cattle is one of the most convenient. Well, let me go back and read the beginning. Logan Maddox says, cattle. Maybe it's because I'm a big nerd who likes mythological stories, but something about a giant stole our cows, please get it back appeals to me. Cattle is one of the most convenient types of treasure. It moves itself. It's useful dead or alive. Less so dead, but still pretty useful if you're quick about it. It immediately communicates to everyone roughly how rich you are. It's inconcealable, so you're always walking exposed and inviting attack, but also no one can simply bump you and run away with your ox on their back. But if they did, it'd be very funny indeed. I also really enjoy pieces of art as treasure and not always paintings. There was this time where, in a campaign taking place a bit earlier in the medieval period, pretty much still in the Dark Ages, I put a whole ass Bible there. Nothing more, it was just a copy of the Bible, but one of my players immediately sussed out that that stuff was not common, and so he took it with him. He eventually didn't want to part with it because his character was sort of a cleric, and I think that's fun treasure you can hoard. When we ran Winter's Daughter, he took the gems the lady gave them and fashioned them into earrings and started wearing his own colors. Since he was part of the clergy, he figured he should have appropriate heraldry and stuff. It was quite fun. My other players at this time were knights, so they didn't care all that much because they already had it. They did like the cattle raid, though. Cattle's a good one, and it's one you don't think of. There's a lot of common things that can end up being treasure. I mean, you're probably not going to find cattle in the bottom of a tomb. So, when you have you're doing your own version of Against the Giants and going against the Hell Giant, then yeah, they might have cattle or cyclops if you want to be even cyclops and sheep. What from the Odyssey, I think. And yeah, that stuff is good. It does speak to your wealth. I think all the things they mentioned are great. I definitely like your odd treasure items, stuff that isn't gold, stuff that the fun thing with stuff that's not coin is that it forces the party to interact with the world to turn it into coin. They've got to get it appraised somewhere. They have to sell it to someone. They have to do all these things out that force them to interact with the world, as opposed to coin, which taking the stuff in their pocket and doesn't add in their interactions. Once they're, I always think that the more you get your party interacting with the world, the more stuff is going to get just. They're just going to what like someone sweeping their hand through water. This is going to bring up all kinds of sand, all the sediments that is sitting at the bottom. And I think of all the stuff in the world is just going to come out just as you get your party moving around. As soon as somebody appraises it, will they do a good job, a bad job? Maybe they try to steal something. Maybe they don't. And then the party then has to take that information, try to find someone to then buy this stuff who's going to be someone unusual because most folk in the world can't afford to buy this fancy urn or painting or whatever it is that was sitting down in some tomb. So now you have to try to find that nobleman, try to find some eccentric person, someone in there, a wizard in their tower, a knight in their castle that's going to buy this tapestry that we've been carting around with us, and we need to unload it because it's heavy and we're tired of walking around with this cart just because we've got this 12-foot long, or I don't know, who knows now, 30-foot long, 20-foot high tapestry. So we got to get rid of it. All kinds of interactions come up. What if the party tries to screw over the appraiser? The appraiser says, well, I'm going to do this, but I want 10% of whatever it's sold. And the party decides not to give them those 10%. And does the appraiser find out? What if the knight says, you know what, I'll buy it, but first you need to take care of this thing for me, or tries to steal it from them? Or there's just so many opportunities as all kinds of stuff is dredged up that I think it's worthwhile putting the coinage stuff to the minimum and really looking at all kinds of grave goods and just art and just weird, all kinds of weird stuff that's maybe valuable to someone, but then it becomes up to the party to find that someone. And then they have to make choices. Well, this thing that looks like a weird fish skeleton mounted in a human form on a thing, that's garbage. But then maybe some other players thinking, no, that's probably going to be the most. I don't know who's going to want that, but whoever does is probably going to pay a lot for it because that's really weird and odd and specific. There's attention, and that's all good stuff. Howdy, Ovaltine Patrol. Stratman Kudzu. We are talking about, probably wrapping up on just interesting different bits of treasure. The topic was, what are your favorite types of non-standard monster loot? Started out talking about natural stuff, giant crab roe, wishbones of a cockatrice, fluids from various salamanders, but then it was getting down here into kind of just your just non or just non-conventional, non-standard treasure, including cows. And here we have a reference from Zoffy Zup. We'll check it out. Why not? I did like going down those rabbit holes from that other thread last week, so I'm more inclined. This is called Cuts, aka Gore. We'll read what that is in a minute. Let me just drop this into the chat. Cuts, aka Gore. I guess it's bilingual, which seems like. Thanks, Daniel Lambert, for catching up the folks. There we go. This is at Kooraq, COORAC.itch.io/Gore, GORE -CUTS. I put in the chat. I'll try to go back and add this to the show notes later if you come back later. Cuts, that is, collecting useful things system, is a response to the lack of rules in the tabletop role-playing game mechanics for disassembling fallen beasts. Regardless of whether you need the rules for hunters hunting bears among snow peaks, you have a Witcher-like player, or if your team wants to know what they can do with dragon scales once they manage to kill it, Cuts is the answer to all these needs. A must-have supplement for every bestiary, book of monsters, and other manuals that tell you how to kill a particular beast, but don't mention what you can do with it after that. Supplement was prepared as part of the second edition of the 3x3 Game Jam. All right, well, I'm not going to download it. So let's just see. Well, let's see. It looks like there's enough here, I think, between these 3 pages we can get a sense of what it is. Okay, but that's not in English, so that doesn't help me at all. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. Let's see. Can we get an English one? Oh. Is this one English? Nope. None of the screenshots are English. Okay. All right, I am going to download it now. Apologies. Hopefully some folks, if you find this interesting, will download it so that I don't feel terrible for grabbing it so we can look at it. All right, this is Cuts, Collecting Useful Things System, role-playing game supplement created as part of the second edition of the 3x3 game Jam by Jacob Skrzyński. Apologies if I butchered that name. Note, the text contains descriptions of the quartering of animal corpses, topics related to hunting and mental illness. I thought that sensitive people might want to be warned before reading. That's thoughtful. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to be snarky. Let's zoom in here. The exploration of unknown lands is inextricably linked with planning and preparing supplies for an expedition. Supplies, however, wear out, and there is not always time or opportunity to return to the settlement and buy rations. Then it's time to hunt. In the wild, you can also look for rare ingredients from the bowels of magical beasts, hidden deep among bushes, high peaks, or inaccessible clefts. Some of the trophies may help you survive the journey, and others may be an expedition's goal in itself. Eventually, during the journey, it happens that some of the equipment breaks. The handle of the axe breaks, the tent gets holes, or the sword gets chipped. Instead of turning back on your way, you can look at what has torn a shelter or warped weapons and find a way to make up for what that pest has spoiled. To help settle such situations, whoops, hold on a minute. All right, now I guess I wasn't sure whether we were supposed to. I think column runs here, column A, column B, and then cross. So okay, sorry for that. Caught me out of my rhythm. To help to settle such situations during play in an interesting way, Cuts was created. Ultimately, there are to be universal rules, so they are based on the assumption that the game uses hit dice, armor class, or different damage dice for different attacks. I tried to present an alternative to resolving such situations in systems where such statistics do not occur. Cuts was written with fantasy worlds in mind, but after switching from alchemy to chemistry, it should adapt to more modern and futuristic settings. If the description refers to a skill or attribute test, it usually indicates the easy, average, hard, or very hard difficulty level of the challenge. Translating the description into the difficulty of the test will depend on the game system you're going to use. At the same time, if the text says that something is easy, or that it is sometimes hard, and the adjective is in bold, this indicates the degree of difficulty of a possible challenge in the session. If there are no attributes or skills in a given game, an easy test is equivalent to rolling at least 3 on d6, average at least 4 on d6, hard 5 on d6, and very hard 6 on d6. The advantage in the test means rolling 2 dice and choosing a higher result. Disadvantage, rolling 2 dice and choosing a lower result. Disadvantages and advantages cancel each other out. I do appreciate that they gave both how you might manage this in a system that has a specific challenge, what's the word I'm looking for, adjudication system, and then also, hey, if you don't have that, or maybe you do and it's complicated, you don't want to mess with that, just roll a d6 and here's how you do it. So I appreciate that. What can be obtained from a killed creature depends on several factors: its size, vitality, resistance, type of attacks, and other innate abilities. Almost always, acting in a hurry makes the actions described below disadvantageous. Failure to obtain or process a given resource, apart from other consequences described, generally means its destruction. Okay, failure to obtain or process a given resource, apart from other consequences described, generally means its destruction. So basically, you're going to get a chance to do something, but if you don't, you can't just endlessly try it. It's like you get an attempt to do it. If you do it, great. If you fail, you're most likely not going to be able to try again. It's a one-time deal. And this is blood orange and orange juice seltzer water for the working man. Trader Joe's is quite delicious. If you want to sponsor me, Trader Joe, reach out. I am not affiliated with Trader Joe's. Looks like we have a table here. So one columns that looks like you're looking at the size of the creature. Less than small, rabbit, fish, or duck, or velociraptor. I don't think a velociraptor qualifies as that small. Have they seen Jurassic Park, or does my conception of what a velociraptor looks like different from theirs? Because I'm guessing velociraptors seem to be, at least in the movies, more in the medium category. I don't know. Ian Boy says a Cherry Joe's sponsorship is the dream. Yeah, it is. It's one of many dreams. So we got small, so we got less than small, small, medium, large, great, and then giant. You can probably, they have the examples in the categories make sense for the most part. I'm not sure on Velociraptor, but I wouldn't doubt it if the movies amped up their sizes and the reality is that they are smaller. But that seems pretty small for them. Otherwise, Stratman Kudzu says real velociraptors are the size of turkeys. All right, so there you go. Well, then that would fit right in there. Though turkeys aren't that small. Well, they're smaller than sheep. So yeah, okay. Maybe they should call that tiny. I don't know why less than small. Just call it tiny. But maybe they felt like tiny would give people the wrong idea that they would think that rabbits aren't tiny. I don't know. Fair enough. All right, so then we get some. These rows here look like, I don't know what. So we get meat portions and exhaustion treatment. I guess we're going to get what these mean in a minute. The meat portions look like you're rolling a die, and the die size keeps increasing until you get to D20, and then you start getting multiples of D20s. Exhaustion treatment is measured in levels. At first, it's 1, then 2, and then you start dicing for levels. Weapon damage goes from D4 all the way up to 2D10, and the amount of substance we just get in ounces, starting with 1 ounce, and then you start dicing for ounces. The size of turkeys and just as vicious. Yeah, that would be, it would be good to do a realistic Jurassic Park. So you get feathered dinos and tiny but still vicious velociraptors. I'd be curious to. I'm surprised they haven't done that. Well, they probably have some Nature Channel going back and looking at the facts and fictions. Not really in terms of the technology, because I remember they would do those shows about could you really get a dinosaur out of amber and whatever, but more like how are their actual how they're actually shown in the movies, how different that is from what we think they actually were in terms of size and how they act and all that jazz, their behaviors. So we have meat and fat. Harvesting them usually requires one easy testing of attribute or skill. The right tools, cleaver, knife, hook, or adequate experience can give you an advantage. Failure to do so means that there will be 2 times less meat and other parts of the body, such as skins or bones, will be damaged. The number of portions that can be obtained from one creature depends on its size. The amount of fat that can be obtained depends on the type of creature, but usually for every 3 portions of meat that you carve out, you can carve out 1 portion of fat. Remember that while obtaining meat can be quite easy, for some creatures an additional challenge is to prepare it properly and safely. Instead of preparing portions and supplies, you can have a feast that will satisfy your hunger and cure long-term fatigue or exhaustion. Each level of exhaustion in the exhaustion treatment represents the ability to heal 1 level of such or similar condition in 1 entity. For example, a feast of 1 sheep will allow you to heal 2 levels of exhaustion in 1 person, or 1 level each in 2 wanderers. I really like this a lot. This concept of having a feast. Hey, you've downed this creature, or let's just say it's a sheep. You can cut it up and have rations for, what do they say for a sheep? D6 number of rations. It seems a little bit low, actually, but whatever. Or you can blow it all on the feast. If you blow it all on the feast, if you have party members who have exhaustion, it's kind of like this extra bit you can do. And you can, of course, work in things like, well, how much time does it take? If you're using some kind of expedition turn, you're in the wilderness, you're traveling, it might take you a 3-hour stretch to do all the feasting things. That's on top of the hunting and everything else. So you're spending time, but you're doing so in a way. And of course, you might think about, well, if you're feasting in an area that's dangerous, chances are you're probably going to get some extra roll for things coming to find you, because you're literally not trying to be quiet and hidden. You're having a feast. You're making a bonfire. You're roasting vast quantities of some kind of animal and meat, so the scents are going to go way out in the woods, right? You're kind of making a spectacle of yourself to a certain degree, but if you pull it off and you do manage to be undisturbed, then you get back an extra bit of exhaustion. Get some energy back. Pete Giant says, check out the cassowary bird. It's kind of equivalent of a velociraptor that is in existence. All right, cool. I'll check it out. On to claws, teeth, feathers, and spikes. Obtaining a complete set of the correct parts in the correct condition requires an average attribute or skill test. Adequate experience can give an advantage. Failure to obtain these materials irreversibly damages the surrounding tissues of the corpse, their skin, guts, parts of the head, etc. The damage table below, or table row, indicates how much damage a weapon, one melee weapon or a supply of ammunition for a ranged weapon, made from the acquired fragments can do. The easiest to rework are the teeth, spikes, and claws of small creatures, which are easily made into arrowheads and bolts. Other uses or larger trophies either require average skill or allow the easy creation of a primitive, brittle, and vulnerable weapon. As a rule, unless we're talking about creatures endowed with magical abilities, then such trophies in a raw or processed state can duplicate the power of that a creature had during its lifetime. The claws or teeth themselves do not produce toxins that could be covered with during the life of the creatures. Obtaining these types of substances requires going deeper. So there's definitely some interesting things here. I don't know that I would have these things doing more damage, especially if they're not magical. For example, if I make a club out of elephant tusk, I don't think it does more than a club made of anything else. I would even maybe argue that ivory as the substance does less than, I don't know, less than if I had a stone, hard wood. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where ivory is on the hardness scale or the brittleness scales, whatever. But I don't think it would necessarily do more damage. It makes more sense to me with things that are super that we think of as being kind of supernaturally sharp or supernaturally hard. But I don't know. That's where I might do something different with that. And size doesn't always tell the tale. Some things might have super sharp, like a Velociraptor may have super sharp claws that a D4 doesn't do justice to. And I usually use just flat D6 damage, so I definitely wouldn't want the players to be able to go, hey, we took down an anaconda, and suddenly we were doing basically double the damage they were doing before. Might need to mess around with that, but it's interesting, which I can appreciate. The next section of the table, amount of substance, indicates how many ounces, parenthetically portions, of a given resource can be obtained for use in a technological, alchemical, or magical process. Whether it's to pulverize the fangs, secure the ailerons, or pickle the claws, in most cases this will require additional tools or even a properly equipped workshop or laboratory. All right, so that's that amount of substance. So if you're looking for something, let's say you needed the saliva of a velociraptor for some kind of alchemical process, if you're able to properly harvest a single velociraptor, you would get 1 ounce of the saliva, something like that. Leather, fur, and scales. Removing the skin from a corpse in such a way as not to damage it and make it suitable for trade or processing is in most cases a task of average level of difficulty. And appropriate equipment or adequate experience can provide an advantage. In the case of scales, as a rule, the smaller they are, the harder it is to do it efficiently enough to get enough to be something more than just a souvenir. Failure to do so in this test, in addition to destroying the skin, will have the number of meat and fat portions that would normally be obtained from that creature. All right, I think I'm going to just kind of scroll through these a little bit quicker. I don't want to get super bogged down, but this got some really nice stuff. You're looking for things for hunting and harvesting. So we have leather, fur, and scales, and we get bones and tendons, eyes and tongue, secretions and blood, glands and guts. So what I like about this is they're being generic in the terms they're using, so that like I was saying before, or in one of those other examples, like we just saw in that treasure thing, hey, I got it's a fire salamander, and I, as the GM, go, that fire comes from a gland that's inside there. I could pull up the supplement and say, okay, we're talking about a gland. Just go down to glands and guts. All right, it's very hard. Or, I think it's in their blood. All right, well, that's hard. Or whatever it is. So it's very easy to figure things out. And let's say for me, I'm using basically vanilla BX, and I want to just use that D6 roll because I don't want to use I don't want to make the adjustments to rolling under an attribute. Then very hard. It's got to roll 6, and then if they have some tools or something, I can give them an advantage, something like that. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we get a whole table of properties of substances. So we get columns for description of the properties, if you botch it, or if you overdose. That's interesting. And then in the rows, healing, we get to kind of types of substances: healing, elemental energy, magical energy, adaptation, boost of vitality, clarity of mind. And that's the end. So a very simple document. I'm not going to read through the table, but if you like it, go pick it up. I'll just reiterate where we were. This was Cuts, aka GORE. Very cool little supplement. It's pay what you want. I think they're asking for $4 or $5 maybe. I think it might not give me the price again. Oh, $2. I think it would say $2. I think I would think that's well worth 2 bits. And it's also in, is that Polish? If you're Polish, you could get it in your native tongue. Cool stuff. And I think that'll be it. Ooh, wait, what's that down here? I'll upvote that. Oh, the secret jackalope. Oh, I'm so behind. I still need to do my secret jackalope. All right, let's go back to the OSR. What else do we have? And as always, folks, call out if you see something that I scroll past that you want to see. Oh, here we go. Oh, I would have clicked in there for a field guide to random table design and RPGs, but it's a video, and I'm not going to do a video. A video with me watching a video about me watching a video about me watching a video. I'm Cranley asks, what is the OSR really about? I'm not going down that path. Don't tempt me, I'm Cranley. I did a whole video on that last year, and then somebody posted, because I think I did, I think the title of my video is, what is the OSR in 2021? And somebody recently commented, what is the OSR in 2022? I thought, I'm not like one of those it seems like auto-generated articles for everything you find online. Best cameras in 2021. Then there's magically a best cameras in 2022. I don't know. I did like I've seen this in a few people, and I don't know who came up with it first. Probably multiple people at once, but the concept of OSR, and especially now, I think when there's more of a differentiation between the OSR and NSR and other things, is that looking at something is, and I think that probably something can be more than one. I think these are overlapping. I don't think you necessarily have to choose whether you're part of the new school revolution or the old school revival, but the idea was, can I run Keep on the Borderlands without having to do too much? Basically, can I take this rule set, run the Keep on the Borderlands, and I imagine that whatever translations I have to do, I can pretty much do on the spot. I don't need to sit down and redo the module. And that's a pretty good, I imagine a lot of any of those older modules. I was thinking, is there a better one? Because Keep on the Borderland technically doesn't really have any hex crawl elements to it. And I think I'd want maybe a module that includes both hex crawling and dungeon crawling. If one does one, is there a good one from those early modules? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Isle of Dread and Keep on the Borderlands to kind of get you hex crawling and a good. Though I guess Keep on the Borderlands is not even the dungeon's not like it's that big a thing. I don't know. But anyway, can you run one of those old modules with minimal changes, which is probably ultimately is a good thing. And it doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter if it's a retro clone or not. If you can run those things with minimal monkeying around, then you could call that OSR, which I think that works pretty well. Lightweight careers for OSR RPGs. I'll check this out. This was posted by Mr. Kitten Mittens at dicegoblin.blog. I will post the link into the chat. Lightweight careers for OSR RPGs. Well, let's see what you got. Kittens for Mittens. There we go. A 3-minute read, so that is good for me. Image, Prepare to War by Derek Zabrowski. That doesn't seem to be there. That's okay. Recently, I've been really interested in classless RPGs. I'm working on a quite extensive system that I'm currently playtesting, but in the meantime, I've got a pretty lightweight take that I made in preparation for a Star Wars campaign I'm running. Design notes. I primarily designed this for a Star Wars campaign, but I've phrased everything as neutral as possible. Besides the ace and technician, I feel like every career is fully usable in any other setting, fantasy or otherwise. My campaign thingy will run in Cairn, so all characters are equally capable at combat. This means you can be a diplomat and still kick ass. On the downside, everyone dies just as easily. Each career counts as a skill in the trifecta of time, gear, skill. The player explains why their career would count. Each career has example questions. These are questions the player can ask the GM at any time. They are things the player might not know, but the character definitely would. The GM is encouraged to create opportunities based on these questions, but there's no need to always say yes. An assassin might ask, how can I make this murder look like an accident? It's valid to answer, you can't. You shot him in the face repeatedly. Wah, wah. I'd say pick 2 careers at the start of the game. I've tried to phrase everything as prompts/hooks. A mercenary may ask, what is the weak point in the enemy fortification? The answer could be, the rooftop ventilation shafts are a structural weak spot. You reckon explosives would do the trick? This can start an effort to acquire explosives and get on the roof. The answer is not a magic solution to the problem. I hope they're asking that after casing the joint. And not you just walk up to the place and suddenly you know the secrets to the weakness of the Death Star. So here are the careers. Ace. You know how to pilot any vehicle in almost any situation. And then I guess these are some of those prompts. How do I ride this strange beast? What is the best way through this asteroid field? How do I bypass an enemy blockade? So you could easily just make Ace into, what would you call that? Captain, navigator, something. What would be someone else? Who's like a cowboy type? What would you call that? Herdsman? That doesn't sound very good. A cavalryman? I don't know. And here's the assassin. You are an expert at dealing death. What improvised weapons are available in this room? How can I make this murder look like an accident? What is the ideal position to take this long-range shot from? And then we have a bounty hunter. You are skilled at tracking and finding your targets. Which door did my target take? Where in the city is my target likely to hide? Who would my target go to for help? Some of these are interesting. There's definitely a story game aspect to these, because a lot of these is, I fall into the camp of, this is where it's kind of up to your players. Yes, these are things that theoretically I am playing a bounty hunter. And so, this, I guess, maybe I'm trying to say this, and I'm making no sense at all. In a modern game, I think a lot of folks come into this is what my character would know. So I should know it. Well, I'm playing a wizard with 18 intelligence, so he's a genius. Shouldn't they know X, Y, or Z? And some things, I get it. I do get that. But for a lot of these things that are the practical meat of the adventure, I'm not someone who in my games, that's not how I adjudicate things. Certainly not in the OSR space. My point of view is part of this game is you, player, are putting your brain in their brain a la Quantum Leap. So if you remember in the kind of Quantum Leap shows, at least if my memory serves, when he quantum leapt into a body, he didn't gain all their stuff. He had to figure it out. Oh, I'm a country western singer, and I got to go out there and sing the tune. I got to scramble because I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I got to figure it out. And that's kind of how I place it. So for the assassin of, what is the ideal position to take this long range shot from? If my player were to ask that to me something yesterday, which I think they did, like, do we know that these are, these look like orcs to us? And I'm like, I don't know. Do they look like orcs to you? What is the ideal position to take this long range shot from? You tell me. Like, I don't know what you're looking for. And as a player, and I would think to myself, I think this is a good ideal position to take a long range shot for. I don't know if a real assassin would. There are all those YouTube videos of real people who have experience with stuff, looking at how these same things are done in different media, like in mostly movies and TV shows. Real police interrogator looks at scenes of police interrogation in movies and fiction and reports back on how realistic they are. I don't know the story where we deal with it, but I feel like in more of a story game and potentially in more of a kind of, depending on how you play games, these might come in handy. I don't know that I would want to rely on them so much in terms of my game, because I think for me, there's this fine line where I feel that If I just wanted to run a simulation of what an assassin would do, I don't need any players. I can ask those questions and answer them myself. What's the ideal position for this long range shot? Okay, go to the top of the tower, take the shot. Like, what do I need to, at some point, what is the player doing if it's just about answering those kinds of questions? But it's, I think it's a lot about the kind of game that I like to play and my experience of playing the game versus others. For some folks, this might be a real hand. And I could see maybe for me crafting this into things that aren't more background or more clue driven than maybe something which to me at least reads like I'm like I'm starting to put their stuff in position rather than them figuring it out and having fun doing it themselves. Brian Smith says these aren't classes. A very loose sense, Brian Smith. They call them careers. They didn't say classes. So I don't think they mean classes as careers. I think they mean careers as in basically data banks filled with information. I say might build a character who's an assassin. Therefore, I have access to assassin's information and I can ask these kind of assassin questions. P. Giant says the problem with giving options to players is that sometimes people can read them as these are the only things they can do and can be reluctant to think laterally about a problem. That's just me, though. Use anything in any method that works. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. You could probably remove these, or you could call these samples. If I was going to do something like this, I would, like in Barbarians of Lemuria has a career system, which works kind of like classes, but it has a similar concept of when you're trying to do something, you make an argument, you make a statement like, okay, so I'm playing a sailor and as part of my sailing experience, I navigated the waters by the stars, whatever. So now I'm not sailing right now, I'm on land, but I still know the position of the stars. So can I find north? Can I find the North Star or the Dog Star or whatever it is and orient myself and get my positioning? And as a player, I say to the GM, I make that kind of argument. Well, look, granted, I'm not on a ship, but it's a clear sky that you've said before. I'm going to orient myself using the stars as I know well from navigating the seas in the evening at night, stay on course, and I'm going to orient myself that way. And the GM goes, okay, you're a sailor, and in something like Barbarians of Lemuria, you basically kind of have levels or you have a numerical score. So I was sailor 2. So you might say, okay, roll, I forget what it is if you roll multiple dice for each level or that changes the target or whatever. Okay, you roll some dice or not if you think it's easy. Okay, great. You're able to use your knowledge of navigation through being a sailor to solve the problem. And I think that's kind of where they're coming at here. They don't mean these in the mechanical sense of a class like your fighter, cleric, blah blah. P Giant says they use the careers just without the examples. Yeah, I might pull out the examples because I don't want them. Some of them I just don't. They're just not my style. That's just a style thing for me. And then I do think there's probably a point to by giving these questions, the players might just you're a diplomat, and so they have these 3 questions, and they're just going to think about, well, when can I ask these 3 questions? When as a GM really want is no, you're a diplomat. Don't think in just terms of those things. Think about all the things that you may use your knowledge and skills as a diplomat. Brian Smith says maybe something like you just get an extra die to add once per session if you justify having some obscure knowledge from your past or something. I mean, there's a lot. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I don't mind giving them more stuff. I don't mind if you say, well, I was doing some kind of I imagine using which I keep wanting to do. I'm sure other people have done it, but I just want to do it for myself. Is make some kind of traveler career system, kind of like you were before you were an adventurer. These are the things you did, sort of thing, and roll on have some kind of traveler type tables and things where all kinds of things can happen and you can gain some stuff. I don't have a problem with them being able to lean on it a lot if they want to. If the situation calls for it, I'm a diplomat and we're at the Duke's ball. So I'm going to lean on my diplomat skills for the whole evening because they're pertinent for the whole evening. I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily feel like, well, I need to limit it to once a game day. I just don't want it to turn into I'm in the Duke's ball. All right. What would, who would I need to talk to for results? And then I just start pointing them around. No, I want them to poke around. Who's here? Okay. Well, you see the Duke and you see the Viscount and you see a couple of minor princes and you see the thing of the church. And then the player to think, okay, so we're trying to get in this with that. Maybe I would understand the question they said, hey, do I think that these minor princes would know something about this person's disappearance, let's say. And then I might say, Well, they might because of this other thing. If I feel like that's something that maybe the player doesn't know, or something about where they wouldn't know say the familial lineage of these different characters around, but I know it, but they're diplomat, it's kind of their thing to know. So that might be one where it's more of a clue thing, where it's like, yeah, those princes might know something about that. But they made that, ask that particular question. They didn't say just in the whole realm of possibilities, who has the thing that I need? And then they're just got a golden arrow pointing that way. It's more like that. But I don't necessarily think that I would feel the need to limit it. But your game, your rules, your style, it's it's just different sorts of play, right? And I'll just breeze through some of these. We got let's see, commander, diplomat, explorer, medic, mercenary, smuggler, soldier, spy, technician. I could definitely see adding these. I usually start with in my game where your characters tend to be pretty young, so they don't have a lot of things to lean on. They're going from being, though of course in the Middle Ages you start things young, but if you're only between say 15 and 18, somewhere in there, you maybe have done one thing, whatever your family did, presumably, or maybe you were just beginning your career as a squire, or you were a third apprentice or something. So you don't have a ton of knowledge, but if you wanted to have a system, I think, where you might start a little later in life, you could tell somebody, hey, you could pick one career or maybe two careers, and then maybe you pay a price or something to have, and then that gives you just some knowledge and things you can use. You could have a lot of fun with it. I just wouldn't want, I think for me anyway, in my game, I don't want this to become the main way of interfacing with the world. Maybe the kind of game they're playing, that's what a lot of it's going to be, is this kind of what I feel like is more of a story gamey sort of thing. But to each their own. But it's still, it's a cool thing. Credit to who posted this. Credit to Lars. Thanks, Lars. Let's go back. Inverse Alien says RIP to Smorbowl, a DOA traveler character that rolled up during the session 0. I think they died in a war thing before he got to be a real PC. Yes, I love that traveler stories of the characters that don't even get to be characters. You roll them up and they die during character generation. I just love that. And I want to do something like that for an OSR game where you literally roll through this person's first however much of their lives, and you can kind of jump at any at the end of a year or whatever period, you can jump out, or you can take your chances and go back in. If you take your chance to go back in, you age a little bit more, you potentially gain more, but there's also, you could get hurt, you could get you could get some kind of injury, you could get a scar, or you could just die. And I really like that fun. Oh, I lost my, oh no, hold on a minute, my video stopped. No, hold on a second, let me redo my video. I'm gonna do something else here. Hold on a minute. Let me sort this out. Oh, what's happening? Well, Melon really completely crashed on me. Melon crashed on me, but I'm back. And nothing's there. It's my daughter. Oh, whew. You know what? It's already, we're 4 minutes before the hour. I wanted to share, you know what? I will share something different for the last few minutes. Glad you can hear me. That at least is good. Let me do something. Hold on a minute. So we just have a few minutes. Few minutes left. Marcel, are you saying you can't hear me or you can hear me? Hopefully you can hear me, not can't hear me. Let's see here. Let me go to, what is it? Mid. I'll show off some of the stuff I've been working on. There's some funky, oh, you can. Okay, good, you can. There's some funky, cool stuff that I've been working on, messing around in Midjourney. I've been spending way too much time Midjourneying. So here are these ones I've been looking at. I'm in love with this thing you can do. You can make 1800 style photographs. So, the old school photography of just stuff. So this one, if you can see the prompt here, a druid dressed in a traditional tunic with a bearskin cloak and an antlered crown in this I'll just zoom in here. And granted, this is not, I haven't picked one to upload or pick one to upscale yet. But man, I just love these. It has these things like these when you look at those old books when people would travel to remote regions and find these folk who are still living in untouched by modern times, and they would take these just awkward photos of them kind of standing around. So I just I love that. So I've been going through some iterations of that. You can see just it's so easy to just iterate until you've got a number. These what's the prompt? Remember, this one is a tutor magician plus sorcerer plus druid plus mesmerist, Mobius style, ink and watercolor, detailed. I just like that one. That one is this one is upscaled. This is another one of the same thing. So if you follow my home game, and I haven't done a home game recap in a while, but I will because we've actually played a few sessions now, so I think I have stuff to talk about. The party made an enemy with this guy named Bogwig the Magnificent, and I was looking at different ways of showing Bogwig. Actually, the ones I think I like the most. This one, before that, this was I took a this one didn't come out that well. I took a quote from Tolkien describing Mordor, and I threw it in the as a prompt, but I ended up getting these kind of not really unpleasant. So that's the whole thing. Upon its outward marges, under the westward mountains, Mordor was a dying land, but it was not yet dead. And here things still grew, harsh, twisted, bitter, struggling for life. In the glens of the Morgai, on the other side of the valley, low scrubby trees lurked and clung. Coarse gray grass tussocks fought with the stones, and withered mosses crawled on them. And everywhere great writhing, tangled brambles spawned. Some had long stabbing thorns. Some hooked barbs that rent like knives. The sullen, shriveled leaves of a past year hung on them, grating and rattling in the sad airs. But their maggot-ridden buds were only just opening. Flies, dun or gray, or black, marked like orcs with a red eye-shaped blotch, buzzed and stung, and above the briar thickets clouds of hungry midges danced and reeled. Marcelo says, Mordor, somewhere in California. Yeah, this is the Mordor if they had to do a Star Trek episode and they just went into the valley and like in an old, particularly in old Star Trek where they would go all these different places and it would conspicuously look like bits of California, like just on the other side of the Hollywood sign, they're filming. This one was my 80s photograph of Heracles battling Bigfoot in the Coliseum. There's this weird things when you get multiple characters interacting with each other. You get a lot of weird oddities. So here somehow, I think this part's Heracles has 3 legs. It might look like a third, some kind of weird disjointed arm thing here. I'm guessing this other thing is the Bigfoot. Some of the other ones were better. This is one I ended up blowing up. I don't know if it's really much better, but it has it. But I'll say this for it: it looks like something out of one of those old like one of those old movies, 1900s when they're just starting to put together movies and they're doing some kind of stop animation. I could totally see that being in there. So it's kind of awesome in its own way. And then this was a cool one. Maybe I should do a segment on this. This one I was trying to put I don't know, I just was looking for quotes and things to put in. So I found this description in Homer, I think from the Iliad, of the shield of Achilles, and the description is really detailed, and this doesn't get all the descriptive things, but I really liked it. I'm definitely going to use this in my game, some magic shield or something they come across. I love the kind of circular mural. I don't know. It's cool. Rado C says, from far away, it looked like Sasquatch in a domestic dispute about their baby. If anything, it's good for inspiration. They're definitely good for inspiration, I think. And you can see here, there are lots of these shields that came out really well. And even some of these Bigfoot ones don't look too bad when they're small. The shields, I'm really happy with the shields. And here's some more pictures of Bogwig, what I was trying to figure out, because he's kind of a little bit loopy. And this was me doing Saruman, where I put in a quote about Saruman. And this one I really like. It's muted, but it's got the rainbow. This is when the quote is from basically Saruman revealing himself as Saruman, the many colors, and talking to Gandalf about it. And it pulled this out. Really liked it. A lot of them definitely had a very Christopher Lee, Peter Jackson movie version, but they came out really well. And you can see me iterating through these and iterating through some various Bogwigs looks like some kind of creepy Harry Potter cosplayer. Let's see. Andrew Blondin says this generator asked what the generator is called. It is called Midjourney. Midjourney. You have to register and just kind of get on a waiting list, I guess, for beta. I don't know how they're doing it. I did a whole stream on it yesterday, Andrew, so you can go back and you can check out where I went through and did some and looked at some other people's ones. Here are some early ones. I will just, there's some kind of map ones I was doing, but where's my other, oh, this, oh yeah, I got one kind of a, so here's my prompt was 1800s photograph of Sasquatch running through Times Square in New York City. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have a couple of variations on that. I just, the old-timey photo, just the green, it just, oh man, just, they kill me. Stratman Kudzu got their invite last night. Awesome. Yeah, just Stratman Kudzu. I don't know, I don't know how it works in terms of when it counts as an image, but you're going to get a limited amount of images that you're going to get without having to go on a paid plan. So just be aware. I went through a rabbit hole and I ran out of my free images fast. Like I mentioned on yesterday's video, thanks to subscribers and patrons and everything, I was able to get a subscription so I could do more, and I've done a lot more since then. I know you can iterate. You may want to read up on if there's a certain amount of iterations before it counts as the image or how that works, because if you do things, and I'm sure I was very inefficient with my usage of my images, you can run out fairly quickly. There is a command / something that you can see statistics and you might get some information. So I just want to check them on that because I want, if you're going to get in and you get your beta and you want to give it a try, don't do what I do and just ends up going like crazy and then you run out really fast. These are these Mobius inspired Mad Hatters, kind of sci-fi-ish. This one's probably my favorite of those two. I like it. And I like the fact that I don't even know if those are eyes or just part of his hat, but cool stuff. Andrew Blondin says, I think this would be helpful to come up with foundations for ideas to build off of as an artist. Yeah, there's a lot, but the thing is, this is really, and Chris McDowell, I saw on their blog, they posted about this earlier in the week, and I just happened to come across it yesterday. But this is really crossing the line where I feel like this isn't, like something like this is not just, oh, this is my starting point. Like, I feel like I could just use that. I really could. I could use it. If I saw that in a book as part of an art, I would be totally happy with it. I would not look at that askance and go, oh, that's some kind of weird thing. They really are starting to break across that line from, oh yeah, this is great, but it looks funky and it looks kind of mushed together and it looks like it's an AI just mashing a whole bunch of stuff together, to like, yeah, this stuff, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Let's see. Here's some night kind of characters. Like, these are pretty badass. Like, I don't know what's going on up here. But even then, I just love the look. I love this kind of funky helmet. This one too. It's got such a nice artistic look that if I saw that in a book, I would not think about it twice. I'd be like, that's pretty darn cool. Yeah, it's principle as an artist. I hear you, Andrew. Well, you've got the skills, then yeah, you could definitely use this to just iterate on a bunch of stuff. The thing is like what Chris McDowell pointed out in his blog is that there's no, you put in these prompts and it's interpreting it in a very literal way. So you're going to get stuff that no person would do for you, because the person's going to understand the fact that you're making an allusion to something, or the reference, and kind of build off that. Whereas the computer, you don't know where it's going to take it. If you just say this thing has a nose like a nose like a fish hook, you probably get some things with literally fish hook noses. Whereas a person's going to say that and say, I get the kind of nose you're talking about. I'm on it. Computer's not going to maybe make that leap, which can be, it's just good, good and bad, but a lot of cool stuff. But anyway, before we go, I just want to show you this other, you can see, again, you get a sense of all the iterations I'm doing. So here was, I think, let's see, which one do I like the best? I ended up doing this one twice by accident. I think this one's more my favorite. From my man Bogwig, who's this kind of crazed, sort of bummy, mesmerizing magician type in the game. The prompt for this was vagabond, mesmerist magician in rags and tattered cloak, unkempt hair, strange grand wand and spellbook, 1800s photography, industrial era, black and white photo. So I got this, and I adore it. and all its weirdness. I think the fact that it's a really old photograph kind of helps, because a lot of the stuff that goes wrong with the AI, you'll see, is stuff like sometimes you get multiple fingers or hands disappear, all kinds of weirdness. But making an old photo just kind of makes it all part and parcel of what those early photos, because it just looks like maybe he moved his hand. Hey, Andrew Blunden, thanks for the Canadian monies. Appreciate that so much. Let's see. Inverse Alien says, I can't wait for whatever the next generation of open AI jukebox will be. Yeah, there's going to be some weirdly, wildly powerful stuff. And when they start to merge together the art with the words, and when you could iterate where I could pull this down and then pull this back in the AI and say, hey, this as my basis, now add these elements to it, like that's when it's going to get crazy. Because that's one of the things that you can't do with it. You can just have it you can keep playing with variations on ideas, but you have no control over. If I take this as a variation and I say, yeah, give me 4 more similar, I can't tell it what direction I want it to go. So the next ones, they're going to be similar because I'm iterating on this idea, but they're going to just do its own interpretation. I just have to keep picking variants until I get to something that I like. Whereas if I could say, hey, this, but now do it in a different style, or more hair to the left, or have his hold up the wand in his right hand. Right now, I can't do any of that. I'm sure at some point it's going to get there, and then it'll be, if you think it's bananas now, it's going to be super bananas. But I'm having too much fun. It's distracting me all day long. And now I've hijacked this stream to talk about it. But it's the end. It's Friday. It's the end of the stream. Hey, if I can't hijack the stream to look at goofy AI-generated pictures of Sasquatch walking down Times Square, when can I? Yeah, some of these I was trying to do a fairy witch kind of concept, and it was a little bit more sexualized than I was looking for. There's going to be a lot of the magic in this is when you can figure out how to word the prompts and what keywords to use to get kind of things you want. And I'm learning. I'll definitely do more, and I'll share a bunch of these in different areas. The high res ones I'll put, because I always try to, I'm so terrible about showing appreciation for the folks who support me that I figure I'll throw the high res ones in, like, for the channel members and patrons, but I will surface some of these in different ways for folks to see. And of course, if you get access to once you get access to Midjourney, I think at least on the paid versions, you'll get access to the community feed, which will have mine and a bazillion other ones all in there. I mean, look at this. Hooded cyborg in a misty market. Come on. I mean, ridiculous. Oh, I'm definitely going to export stuff and use it in my hex maps, Marcello. Do not fret about that. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to do. All right, folks. Well, that is a Friday. I'm going to call it a wrap. Sorry for the weird technical difficulty there for a minute. I'm glad it was sorted without much issue. Leyline Dowser. Yeah, I should do that. You know what? Put in the, I don't have time to get into it now, but do it in the, I'll make a, this is what I'll do. And this, for folks who are on, I guess, in your browser and YouTube as opposed to watch, I don't know if people watch this on their TV or what, but in the community tab on YouTube and on my forums, I'll put 2 things. We can put in some things to put in some prompts, and maybe I'll take some prompts, put them in a poll. We can vote on some prompts, and we'll run them through the machine. Either I'll just do it and post results, or maybe we could do as a stream, run through some stuff, and we can do that and just have some fun with it. I've got the subscription, which gives me basically unlimited photos. They can slow down the pace, but they're not going to cut off the spigot theoretically. So I'm happy to run through some stuff. B Giant says it looks like cool stuff. It's yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff. So we'll do more of that, but that's all I got for now. Folks, have a super amazing, awesome weekend if you're in here now. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day or night. Whenever you end up watching or listening to this, Marcello, it's midjourney.com for the app. You can also check out yesterday's stream if you want even more details on it. I'll throw it into the chat. My forums are forums.hexedpress if you want to go there. But I'll also put the prompt in on my YouTube community tab. So once I put the prompt in there, or put the thing in there, comment in there, or comment in my forums with some prompts you want to run through, and we'll do something like that. So otherwise than that, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you're watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. If you give a thumbs up on your way out, that'll be awesome. And if you're not subscribed and you're in here and you feel like subscribing, that also would be awesome. Otherwise, just have a great Have a great rest of whenever, everybody. Take it easy. Ciao.